Can you believe this? Over 3 hours of wrestling and only one good match. Can this get any worse?
And here comes the big dog.
That's it, I'm out.
Roman Reigns. What can you say about him besides just a man who doesn't need any introduction and you literally walk away? Welcome to the JM Report. I am IAmGoodOlJM, coming to you from the CSB studios in Tampa, Florida, the home place of pro wrestling. And in case you wondered, no, I did not do a Backlash review because, like many others, I was just disappointed, but I later realized it's kind of my job, so for what it's worth, I apologize for it. But considering how much of a mess the entire show was, well, for the exception of one match, of course, that being The Miz versus Seth Rollins, which I'll get into in a minute. But I guess I was just so overwhelmed with disappointment and just I'm sure there's at least one person wondering, well, what'd you expect? Well, I mean, not much, I guess, but better than what we ended up getting. At the same time, it just didn't feel anything was accomplished or advanced as far as storyline goes. It was just watching paint dry. But I'll just run down through the results and give my opinions of each ending and move on from there. But in case you didn't get it from the top of the program, Vince McMahon apparently, according to many reports online, was very upset watching the fans during Backlash walk out before, during, and especially right after. Now, matter of fact, not even right before the match ended, the main event of Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe. Fans just hightailing out of there. And being located in New Jersey, the Prudential Center, I might have been there a handful of times. I used to live in New York City, so I'm kind of familiar with the tri-state area as far as the arenas go. And as a matter of fact, I knew a few people that attended Backlash that are from New York. So it's quite a trip. Whether by car or you catch the Amtrak train, it's the trip itself, but on top of that, the waiting period. And unless they're on a really punctual schedule, and usually they are, but being the weekend, a Sunday night, might be off by a tad, and you're going to get home pretty late. So what I used to do, if I didn't have a friend who was also going with me to an event, drive us in and use one of the parking garages. We would wait for the train, and depends how long the trip is, depending on the capacity of the passengers. It will take a while. All in all, for me, it would have taken about an hour and a half to get home. And yeah, I mean, Jersey's right across the street, or in this case, across the river to get to New York, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. There were cases where take the train from Jersey to New York and then catch a local train to my neck of the woods, which was Queens, and in other cases catch a bus. So back then, this is back then when Uber didn't exist yet, and I wouldn't even know if Uber would do such a trip from Jersey to New York. I rarely use them, but point being, that could only be the most logical excuse why anyone would leave. I mean, they pushed it to almost 11:30, maybe a little more Eastern time, and that's pretty late. Sure, it's near the end of the school year for some, but others have to work. Others, like I said, got to go to school or have other responsibilities, and yeah, should they have kept that in mind before attending Backlash, knowing that's going to end pretty late, 11 o'clock, the earliest? Obviously they did, but still, I mean, it's been pushing it a lot lately. No, there's no lady here, but lately. And I understand that the WWE has their own network. They can go as long as they want. Hell, they've proven that with WrestleMania the past few years, pretty much since the network launched, and most recently with the Greatest Royal Rumble. Basically, these things don't have any time limit. And at times, it could be frustrating or it's just be too long. And I mentioned this before, just like things like that just don't keep under consideration. And it's very frustrating. It's very disappointing. Then again, I could be all wrong. It just could have been the fact that they all realized, and so did I in my case, that the main event was once again Roman Reigns and not the championship, which many preferred. But then again, considering the ending of that match, it gets a pass. Not too much, but enough of a pass to, if this event had a neck to to snap. Oh my goodness. So, you know what? Let's just get into the results before I go any further and just give my opinions of what took place. So the kickoff match saw Ruby Riott defeat Bayley. Sasha was in attendance. She was seen entering the arena. She was in full ring gear, but only backstage as they being Bayley and Sasha had a conversation about watching each other's back and tried to apologize, blah, blah, blah. So no Sasha, saving for the beatdown that Bayley received from the Riott Squad. In the kickoff match for the actual event, actual Backlash, Intercontinental Champion Seth Rollins defeated The Miz to retain, and the title remains on Raw. The only great match, folks. Once the bell rings for the end of this one, it's all downhill from here. I'm disappointed to say, but it is. Great match, and I have to compliment The Miz, at least on TV, WWE TV that is. He's been on a much longer than Rollins has, and he plays such a great heel. He knows what buttons to push with the fans, what topics to touch, and I don't recall too many times Miz being off script too much, especially if he thinks that, and this was seen many times the past few years, if he thinks, or and you can kind of read in his face, if he thinks that he's not getting enough heat like he should be from talking down to his whichever opponent or rival at the time, he'll attack the hometown crowd. Hey, the Celtics suck, or the Dodgers this, and the Lightning that, and they're getting riled up, of course, depending the time of year and what's in season at that time. And he does a great job. I think he's even a better heel when Maurice is around, because we're not going to get any intergender matches, at least not one-on-one. So, Maurice more than likely is not going to get hers, and it's just The Miz that's going to get the brunt of it. So while Maurice is at home, being a mom, and again, congrats to Maurice and Miz on that, Miz himself has just evolved, and especially now without the Miztourage, I think he's even a better heel. He's kind of forced to fight his own battles, not rely too much on any, shenanigans and cheating and this and that. And he just gets the right amount of pissed off, the right amount of heat from the fans that just verbally harass him for the fact that he didn't win the title. And his in-ring ability, again, has also evolved. I think he's getting, not that he hasn't been, but I just haven't acknowledged it enough, how much of a great performer he's become. And I'll admit, I was a little, maybe not hesitant's the right word, but maybe unsure of his career long term. Coming from the MTV reality world and what was that? Open Road, Open Challenge, Real World, and stuff like that. But I did enjoy when he did compete in one of those Road Rules, Real World Challenges, I believe. These two reality shows that competed against each other, American Gladiator style or Survivor style. And I enjoyed the first couple of seasons. But considering where he's come from, being a fan, going through Tough Enough, and still at least from the WWE's point of view, still has some kind of interest, any kind. And look at him now. Sure, he's main evented only one WrestleMania, but he's gone on record that he would like to win back that title and bring some kind of meaning and make it important again. Make that championship main event. Unlike this night, unfortunately. But at the same time, you know, if you want to look at it kayfabe style, or in a kayfabe way, Miz, the last few runs he's been Intercontinental Champion, he's rarely defended a title. If it wasn't on a pay-per-view back-to-back, it'll be maybe a 2-3 month gap. And that adds on to the longevity of a champion, you know, 400 days, 300 days, which I'll mention here with someone currently that may break that record or a record. But again, I cannot compliment The Miz any more than I can. I'll see if I can tweet him later. Not that I know him personally, but, you know, anyone can tweet him unless he's blocked you. But I'll let him know and show that appreciation because he's come a long way. And it showed here with the match against Seth Rollins, a tremendous match. Even in a losing effort, The Miz really looked like $1 million. Raw Women's Champion Nia Jax retained against Alexa Bliss. Apparently, and I use that term loosely, Alexa hurt her shoulder. Couldn't figure out exactly at what point, but as soon as the event was over, there were reports on WWE.com. Alexa Bliss suffered a shoulder injury during her match with Nia Jax. Only for the next day for Nia to get on Twitter and call out Alexa about the fake injury. So maybe you want to look at it again from a kayfabe point of view, or unless it's just a suggestion from someone to Nia and say, just get on there and call her out on it. Because Alexa has been, and we've seen remix. We've seen Alexa Bliss before on her flexibility. That is that she's double jointed, and that one match, who was it? It was either against Sasha or Bayley, and that she was able to literally bend her elbow the opposite way, and it looked really gruesome, but. It wasn't until after the fact that it was revealed that, you know, Alexa is double jointed and not dislocated, and that's probably someone remember that and just went to Nia, like, you know how flexible she is. So for the sake of argument, she's not injured and just in a heel role, it's just playing it off, and that maybe this week on Raw she can. Come out and expose the fact that she's injured, but she's just really exposing her ability to be double jointed or something like that. But injury or not, they didn't take this. They took precautions. Is what I'm trying to say. And Alexa was reported injured, and we'll see. We'll see if Nia Jax has any truth to what she was saying. So moving on. Our next match saw the United States champion Jeff Hardy defend against Randy Orton. Not bad. I probably shouldn't get into too much details about each match because not that there were any botches like the previous week, but all these matches, with the exception of Seth and Miz, I feel that they underperformed. Now, I'll get through the results and give my opinion as to why they may have happened, but it is what it is. But Jeff Hardy retains. He hits the Twist of Fate and goes for his signature Swanton Bomb for a finisher. Now, usually, especially lately, at least the past few years, Hardy would be a hit or miss with his Swanton Bombs. Either he gets all of it or just enough or none of it at all. And in this case, he landed body on Orton. Okay, Randy knows how to protect himself, and even against someone free falling from about 6 feet in the air, maybe a little more. And Jeff's entire back landed across Randy Orton's torso. And no, he's not hurt anything. I'm just trying to paint the picture here. Where normally Jeff would be head and shoulders hitting the torso or sternum area of his opponent, and maybe Hardy, maybe Hardy undershot it. Obviously, he did because body on body contact from a swanton, and Randy's expression was more like, "Oh, okay, okay, yeah, let's just finish this up." But Randy's okay. There weren't any reports of injuries on his end, but maybe raise a little bit concern or ask questions. There's nothing wrong with that, asking questions of Hardy's timing. That's all I'm saying. His timing or his, I guess, measurements when it comes to the distance between himself and his opponent coming off the top rope on anything. And, of course, I didn't want to go back too far, but with the whole botch at the Greatest Royal Rumble against Jinder Mahal and had nothing but canvas with his whisper in the wind, that wasn't entirely his fault because he was literally doing that, without any guidance. His back was turned. He couldn't see where Mahal was. But point being, let's not make this a habit. That's what I'm trying to say. And anyone's concerned about that from trainee's point of view or agent's point of view, talk to Jeff, see what's going on. After this, we had an impromptu concert performance from Elias. Crowd ate him up as usual. Of course, he will say or sing something to turn on them because he's a heel, folks. He's a heel, but a very entertaining heel. I wish they could do a little bit more for him other than just show off his skills and playing just about any instrument, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's very talented. It takes a lot of talent to play one instrument, let alone several. And Elias has proven that. I'm not saying make him champion now, but have him in a very productive feud with, let's see, he just finished the feud with, who was that? I can't remember now, but he just had a feud with someone. Didn't go so well. Maybe, I guess Heath Slater or Rhino. No, they kind of did that, didn't they? Yeah, never mind, scratch that. But basically work his way up. I mean, he accepted an open challenge from Cena a few months ago. That didn't go anywhere. And it was a pointless win because Cena would leave soon after. It was doing him calling out The Undertaker. And Cena didn't really have to win that match, in my opinion. Had it been more of a DQ or a count out, still have Cena go over. But, what happened with Elias ever since? I remember now. He had a feud with Matt Hardy, and this is before they teamed him up with Bray Wyatt, and I guess they slowly drifted away from that angle, and Elias is just left without any opponent or rival to go on with. But we'll see. And anyway, Elias's performance, fun and entertaining, and then we'll have the New Day come out with Pancakes. Then No Way Jose with Titus Worldwide. I didn't realize Breezango was part of that entourage until they were leaving. I really didn't. Either there was bad camera angles and they didn't pick up everyone that was coming out, but they sure caught them on the way out to backstage, I should say. And yeah, it was harmless fun. I mean, again, it didn't really pursue anything, but it just goes to show that no one keeps really good continuity, at least not on Raw, because the previous week we saw Bobby Roode, being dropped across the security wall there, the security railing around the ring, on his throat, and he's selling it like Ricky Steamboat, a la WrestleMania 3 or before WrestleMania 3, and I guess Bobby Roode has these amazing healing powers because 6 nights later he was great, feeling great, and at the end of this craziness and concert, if you will, here comes Bobby Roode in full wrestling gear, his robe and everything, and delivers his glorious DDT on Elias, and that was it, I guess. Throws his hands up, this is glorious, and I feel fine. I guess miracles do happen. And I hope this was Bobby's idea, but anyone in the back that suggested Bobby Roode to twerk or shake it or whatever, please don't. Don't do that. You can't. He couldn't pull it off. But again, it was all harmless fun. I get it. It's even. I don't know if it's better or worse, but when Big E does it, oh man, certain big men shouldn't be twerking, but that's just me. Daniel Bryan has his official scratch that. His first ever one-on-one match on pay-per-view since returning of medical clearance against Big Cass here. Typical David and Goliath match. Of course, Cass would get some heat because many thought that he was off script the SmackDown before and making a few comments here about little people and others with differences in height. Well, if it's trying to create heat, then he's doing his job. But yeah, I don't suggest anyone going off script for that same reason of you getting into trouble. And I myself, I rather, if it was up to me, and I know that they're not going to ask me to, but if it was up to me, I'll tell everyone bullet points, depending on what's happening currently in their feud or in their angle. You know, hit this, hit that, mention this, and in your own words, from speaking from the heart, you know, talk about this, and that's it. So that way they will know what you're going to say. Maybe not in any particular order, but an idea of what's going to be said. So that way no one panics and has a trigger figure on the censor button. And some people are just not too good at that, hence the script. But anywho, Daniel Bryan would defeat Big Cass with the yes lock, making him tap out. And Cass would just beat the crap out of him post-match, continue on this feud. SmackDown Women's Champion Carmella, first time defending her title on a pay-per-view, defending against Charlotte Flair. A lot of mistimed spots in this one. I know Charlotte's a veteran at this point in time. Carmella, in comparisons, I don't want to say she's still green, but then again, in the past year or so, hasn't been given that much TV time other than just recently as being, I guess, being partnered up with James Ellsworth. And before that, wasn't much TV time. She'll be backstage and doing something with the other women. I think she got a spot on Total Divas. I don't know. But I know I wasn't the only one that noticed. And Twitter just lit up overnight. And it lasted for about 48 hours, best of my knowledge, because it was just too much to keep up with. And there were a lot of fans that pointed that out to Carmella about her timing. There weren't necessarily botches, I would say. That would have been way too obvious and more of an easy target to go after Carmella, but there were too many mistimed spots, and a lot of fans, a lot of fans would attack Carmella via Twitter about that. They're saying that she's a bad wrestler, her timing is off, and this and that. Carmella, being a heel, regardless how popular she is with some of the folks, I obviously didn't know these people personally, but very slick-like. She would, I guess, view these people's profiles or some of the pictures that they posted, and she will call them out on that about being a loser. Oh, you spend so much time at home and probably never seen the sun in how many days. Or, she'll point out a few flaws on their end, and just be not too vicious, but enough to know that, like, okay, you talk smack about me, I'm going to talk smack about you. It's only fair, but, she's still doing what she does, not only for a living, but it's what she loves to do. It's what she always wanted to do as a young girl. So there you go. And speaking of which, the result. Carmella retains. And Charlotte, I'll speak about Charlotte here in a little bit, but they're all currently in Germany doing a tour there. Up next was the WWE Champion AJ Styles defending against Shinsuke Nakamura in a no DQ match. I don't know. The match itself was slightly better than the Greatest Royal Rumble match. There were a few spots, obviously taking advantage of the no DQ stipulation. Chairs were used, tables were used, and of course, dick kicks were used by the master himself, Shinsuke. And finally, and I think this was the only positive reaction throughout this match, right before the ending. In the middle of the ring, Shinsuke nut kicks AJ Styles, and finally Styles retaliated and kicked him right back in the strong style nutsack. And the crowd popped big. And I was sitting at home saying, finally. Obviously, no one's wearing any cups. No lesson learned here. And it ended shortly after. But before I get to that, Shinsuke was setting up for a Kinshasa. And AJ obviously was across the ring. Shinsuke was on the other side. And there was a chair right between them. So what happens here, again, being a no DQ match, AJ realizes what's about to happen. Shinsuke charges, but Styles reaches for the chair and flings it towards, fastball the steel chair towards Shinsuke. It bounces off Shinsuke's leg because it was just about in that Kinshasa position. And I'll say the top of the chair a little bit made contact with Shinsuke's jaw or chin area. But no, Shinsuke protected himself. And the chair would ricochet right back off Shinsuke's body towards AJ Styles, and appeared to be, it happened so fast, the edge of the chair caught AJ Styles right on the side of his left cheek, and it busted him wide open. And the referee immediately put on the gloves and the latex gloves, realizing that there's a legit injury that was not expected, or in some cases not approved by the back. And you will see the aftermath scarring on AJ Styles' cheek. It looked like he got burned. Definitely that's going to leave a gnarly scar by the time it's completely healed. But what a trooper. He continued the match for a few more minutes, leading to the double punt, Richard kick. Richard, the short name for Richard. Yeah, double Richards, and both men go down, obviously. I hope they did. And could not answer the referee's 10 count. Now, it's a no DQ match. I get it. And countouts are in play, obviously. Out of the ring, or the mandatory 10 count. But I don't know. It kind of like, especially coming off the double count out the week before. Here we are with another double count out or countdown, or whatever you want to call it. It's repetitive at this point. Do we really are we really looking forward to a quote unquote another dream rematch between Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles in the WWE? It's almost as if they yanked the soul out of that, where they kicked ass over in New Japan and Wrestle Kingdom 10, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, sure. No one's expecting. I really hope not, but I know for sure that I wasn't expecting a repeat, or segment by segment, spot for spot, or even if it's tweaked a little bit. It's rare to capture that magic again. I know Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker did, but everyone's going to compare one from the other. And yeah, the WrestleMania 25 match was much better than the 26 match. And the only reason why the one from WrestleMania 26 was a little bit more important is because it was a career versus streak match. The streak versus a career. Had they done that the previous year, maybe, had things been different, obviously, but, Shawn wasn't quite ready to hang it up. Taker was still ready to go for as long as he can, as he still is. And how much more emotional that would have been invested into that match. But maybe there was a plan by the time they got to 27 for the end of an era match with Triple H and bringing back Shawn, possibly. I'm not gonna argue that, but still, it's just funny funny in a good way, how everything, all the leaves fell into play, and it turned out great. That was another great match, the Triple H Hell in a Cell with The Undertaker. But AJ Styles is still the champion. Shinsuke will more than likely get a rematch, I believe, at Money in the Bank. It wasn't officially announced, but this week on SmackDown, talking about, next time. Well, more than likely it's going to be a Money in the Bank. Maybe they'll change the stipulation, last man standing, or no holds barred, something. Just, we need a winner, basically. Yeah, we got one at WrestleMania, but since then it's like, okay, enough with the stipulations. Just pick one so we can move on from this. If it's not already clear that they're more than likely not going to plan to have Shinsuke win the belt, if it's not the next time, then it's not going to be ever, to be honest, or years from now. Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley teamed up against, actually with each other. Lashley and Strowman teamed up to take on Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Not much of a good match here. There were a lot of repeated spots from a previous episode on Raw. And at the end, saw Strowman and Lashley, the two big guys, go over. The heels, looked like people thought they were teasing a breakup between Sami and Owens, whether or not who's going to go in first, who's going to, why didn't you tag me out? Literally feeding each other to the wolves at one point, and left both men laying. That, it didn't matter. If both guys were laid out, regardless, then that shouldn't be considered a tease. It's just one heel working with another. Obviously, heels have to be a little bit of cowards, and that's gonna mix and mingle when there's two cowards. One has to slightly be more man than the other, but they still end up being cowards at the end, and they both got beaten down. So probably no split up anytime soon. They need good heels on Raw, and Sami and Kevin, I think, can do a great job with that role, especially if there are any long-term plans of making them tag team champions, and then they will really take off at that point. And our main event, nothing special here. Roman Reigns defeated Samoa Joe. Spear, Superman punch. Spear, Superman. Roman Reigns wins. Probably his first pay-per-view win since since the last one. And as I mentioned, the cameras didn't pick up a lot of it, but there were definitely, towards the end, in the background, you could see fans almost immediately leaving. If not towards, definitely by the end. And if you're leaving an event after the last bell rings and they announce the winner, and you're about maybe a few steps away from the little tunnel to get to the lobby, then you're good. It's not like that they announced any dark matches or another segment of 205 Live or anything like that. I mean, I've done that before several times. When you know it's the main event and the bell rings and you want to try to beat traffic, especially the traffic of people out the arena, then I'll be one of those guys trying to get out first. Maybe at this point in my life, not at my age, but you'll try. And I'm guessing that's what happened, or I'm guessing that's what happened a lot of, was the reason. But also, people, I think, are just reading too much into it because, it's Roman Reigns. They didn't want to see him in the main event again. Vince just doesn't get it. I understand. And after 4 years and we're still going on with this project, it's not working. It's just not working. Give someone else a chance. Just go back to that Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast on the network about people just not stepping up to the plate, Steve. They're not like you. They're not rebellious. They're not rebellious. Don't piss anybody off. Well, maybe they're just being respectful. Maybe they're just being polite. And maybe, and I don't work there, I haven't, and probably after these comments I never will, just maybe being surrounded by too many yes people, men, women, whatever. Like, yeah, good idea, Vince. Yeah, let's go with that, Vince. I'm like, common sense does not exist in the WWE. What proof I have of that? Well, if it's true that all roads cross and end with Vince, and he has final word of what goes on TV, that's all the proof you need. And yeah, we've seen this before. We've all, at least most of us, been through all this before with the John Cena experiment. And a lot of us didn't have much of a choice. For as much as we were vocal and they listened to the audience and they want to make everyone go home happy, they haven't been doing that a lot lately. They're not happy with Roman Reigns. At least a lot of them showing people, oh, well, he's selling our merchandise. This and okay, fine. And again, it's the John Cena syndrome all over again, where if they're only focusing on the younger audience and here not trying to insult them or anything, but they don't know any better. They just see a big guy and is a badass and whatnot. I mean, so was Samoa Joe. Why isn't he pushed? Why isn't the camera showing fans in the audience with his merchandise? Same thing with some guys like Seth Rollins. I mean, he has a great following, has a great crowd reaction. But when they cut away, unless there's a sign in the audience, you don't really see people, at least not on camera, wearing his merchandise. 1, 2, maybe, but for the most part, they're looking for the signs or anyone responding to a promo or a spot in the ring involving, in this case, Seth Rollins. But I just think, it's done with. Even if they make him champion, you're just making things worse now at this point. If Roman gets drafted to SmackDown, let's say, for example, which I highly doubt it will happen, but he wins the title there because things weren't working out on Raw. He's the quote-unquote uncrowned Universal Champion, and I'm not getting back into that again. But 4 years is a long time to place this man in the main event. And for the record, I have absolutely nothing against Roman Reigns. Whether he's with the Shield or by himself, definitely not a fan when he was just promoting, suffering succotash. Remember that? That didn't go so well. And I think from that point, it was all downhill. Trying to promote him more and more as the main event guy, going after the title, winning Rumbles, winning Money in the Bank or what have you. Great, but there isn't any, for the fans' perspective, there isn't any care where we feel sorry for the guy. And it's kind of mixing in another syndrome that happened back in the late 90s where Bret Hart was a big hero. And all they had him do every week on Raw was just come out and complain and whine about being screwed over, about not winning a championship, about this guy, interfered one too many times, so I have to go after him before I have to go back to the title. It's a mixed bag of a lot of things. Again, Reigns can pull out a great match. He's proven that before. Probably one of my favorite matches involving Roman Reigns is not the triple threat, but the 6-man tag that the Shield had against Evolution just not too long ago. And when they were still doing the Shield coming out of the crowd and all members were champions, he was the U.S. champion, and Seth Rollins and Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose were tag team champions. I was all in for the Shield. I mean, they can't do no wrong. Maybe the split up came a little too early, but everyone has different opinions about that. But it's just the way he's being presented. I don't know if Reigns, speaks up. I don't know if Reigns has any input as far as his character's direction, his input on promos, even though he kind of got caught with his pants down with that one with Cena a few months ago. Didn't look too good on him. And that's another thing where you can't hide his flaws or weaknesses where he's still a little bit green. Once that's that exposed, it's you might as well call it all over. I don't want to go too long with this. I don't want to dwell on this because the man has done nothing wrong but his job, and if his job's full of wrongdoing because of what he's being told to do, then maybe the man should speak up. Maybe he should say, "Hey, listen, I appreciate what you guys being creative, you guys being the writers, agents, there has to be a different way. And I have a few suggestions. And you can pick out from there, incorporate that into what's going on now with Samoa Joe, even though they're on separate shows. What's going on with Brock Lesnar if he ever shows up again. Just something, anything that what's happening now. And I really hope they do figure that out real soon. I really hope that they don't have a repeat of what happened with Cena, having him just being, forcefully shoved down our throats. Like, no, this is the guy Vince wants you to like, and you're going to like him regardless. The fans see that. The fans see through that, and they will not accept it. If him coming out saying suffering succotash wasn't the downfall, then them not listening to the fans like they say they do back at the 2014 Royal Rumble when there was no Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns wins the match anyway, and The Rock couldn't save babyface Roman. The writing was already on the wall. So I really hope, and Roman Reigns, again, it's a great talent, and I really hope they find something for him real soon. So that was Backlash 2018. Up next will be Money in the Bank. They've had a few qualifying matches so far on Raw and SmackDown, and it looks like it's going to be pretty packed. Meaning the two Money in the Bank matches for men and women. Looks like it's going to be pretty packed. Something like 8 participants. That's crazy. Yeah, we've seen it before, but I guess last year will be a good example of the men and women's in one match. I guess obviously they're no longer doing a SmackDown and Raw only ladder match because everything's all interpromotional moving forward as a WrestleMania. Moving forward, every Raw and SmackDown combine each other on pay-per-views, and they're gonna have on occasion interpromotional matches. Thus, the Money in the Bank. So far from the women's side, the women's Money in the Bank ladder match is Charlotte Flair and Ember Moon have qualified so far. And over on the men's, Braun Strowman, The Miz, Rusev, and Finn Balor. Men's need 4 more participants to fill those spots, while the women need 6. Should be very interesting moving forward and see what kind of qualifying matches they'll have on their respective shows. Speaking of Vince McMahon, he sent out a tweet earlier this week congratulating Dave Bautista, whose movie The Avengers Infinity War, I should say, has become the best #1 overall box office opening for any movie. And it's broken $1 billion in less than 2 weeks, folks. $1 billion on one movie. That's incredible. So why am I pointing this out? Well, as many of you may or may not remember, Batista was last seen in WWE back in 2014. And it was right before his first Guardians of the Galaxy movie premiered. So some of the details that came out of his contract at that time, one being that eventually that August after the Royal Rumble that year, that August he would have to step away because he would have to go overseas and tour around the world to promote Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, and I'm pretty sure I made mention of this here, that specifically between Vince, Triple H, and probably Stephanie, didn't believe that movie was going to be successful. And either they acted like ostriches and had no idea of the success of the MCU movies up to that point. They had no idea what the hell they were talking about and had little to no praise to talk about it or to tell Dave, and no confidence. And if all of that came from Triple H himself, it's rarely funny coming from a guy whose movies went straight to DVD. I think his one and only theatrical movie that Triple H was ever in was Blade 3. And even then, he was throughout the movie, but even that film didn't perform well in the box office, and that's a whole other story. But I just find it way interesting. Here we are about 4 or 5 years later. Vince, of all people, is congratulating Dave for breaking $1 billion for his success on the Infinity War movie. And I replied to that and I said, yeah, where were you 4 years ago? I mean, it's playing the same character, playing in the same, cinematic universe. Even that movie was just, maybe not as successful money-wise, but still successful nonetheless for that company to move forward. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Vince, hey, Dave, oh, yeah. Congratulations, Dave. $1 billion. Wow. Yeah. Imagine you make that kind of money in WWE. You want to? No, Vince, you can't afford him that way. If anything, if and when there'll be another opportunity for Vince and Dave to work together. And I'm not saying Batista's greedy for money. I'm not saying he's, on an ego trip and demand a bigger contract than he's had before. But if anyone's representing Batista, I would assume that they would go that direction. I mean, here's a man who's been involved with a billion dollar movie, and he's done other projects that were very, very successful, if not just as. And you're offering a contract for WWE with only this salary? You got to be kidding. But it's a business. That's how it's conducted. I've signed contracts before, but nowhere near that level, obviously. And it's almost like a bidding war. And hopefully it does happen. We came close this past year, WrestleMania, the idea of having Batista teaming up with Ronda Rousey, but that fell short because no one ever called back. No one ever bothered calling back Dave Batista in a response. And that's really a shame. Hopefully everyone learned their lesson. But Dave, moving forward, he's still got great projects. He's going to film the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie early next year to be released later on between late 2019 and early 2020. So everything's moving forward and looking great for Dave and all points in between of any other projects he might have. Matter of fact, he has a part with Sylvester Stallone in a sequel for Escape Plan. That's also coming up. So let's all keep an eye on for that. Glenn Jacobs, also known as Kane, recently won the Knox County Republican mayoral election. Unfortunately, now there are reports indicating that the election may have been interfered by a cyber attack. This comes off of CNET. According to CNET, Knox County website crashed for approximately 1 hour on election night. Current Knox County Mayor Tim Burchett is calling for an independent review and has stated, although the crash did not affect the vote tallies or the integrity of the election, there is not something that should happen. This is not something that should happen, excuse me. I want to know what happened, and I think an independent review would help determine that so we can move forward and work to prevent similar issues in the future. Well, as of right now, because this report came out, I believe Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, but Kane is still declared the winner of the electional vote, and looks like he will be declared the new mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. And there are already people on his Twitter account congratulating him, and more than likely Kane will be mayor. Mayor Kane. Congratulations and kudos. They being the E! Network, has debuted a new trailer for the upcoming season 3 of Total Bellas. And no, I do not watch. But I find it kind of interesting because I know I did bring this subject up about the breakup between Cena and Nikki Bella, how all of it went public, and that if they happen to film any of this, or this is just a whole ruse to get more ratings, to get more viewership for the show, then I'm just done with these people. And sure enough, if you watch the trailer, there's Nikki sitting at the foot of the bed, and there's Cena right next to her, or it's probably a bench at the foot of the bed. But anyway, she's crying, she's bawling her eyes out. Cena basically telling, hey, I'm not holding you back, and you can move on to do what you want, but I don't want to get married. I'm paraphrasing. And I'm like, son of a... So what were the previous reports then? Oh, okay, yeah, it's a reality show, but, you can't see me doing the air quotes. But we've seen this before. And usually shows get canceled when cast members are not expected to return because they call it quits or they've broken up with one of the other co-stars and now they got to be written off the show. That particular show doesn't last that much longer. That'll probably be, that year will probably be the end of the season or the season finale. But it just rubbed me the wrong way. And besides what was seen and besides what was heard as far as any responses to the breakup, to announce it before and then by some coincidence just happen to have it on film for a reality show that's going to air in a few weeks, they're going to expect people to tune in to find out what really happened. Well, I'm not saying it's a stunt. I'm not saying it's all a ruse or a swerve. I don't care. They're both going to be fine eventually. Hell, their show is fine financially. Even though the last report I came across while coming up with every other story that I want to talk about here, Nikki's still staying at Cena's house. So does she have nowhere else to go? I guess not crashing with Bree is, not negotiable. But I'm just saying. When they go, you're reading off the internet, it's probably not true. Like, can you prove that it's not true? Can I prove that it's not true? No. But I can state my opinions using a little bit of common sense. Why would any ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend still live at the other person's house long after they've broken up? But yet there's a TV show about them coming up in a few weeks that's going to be surrounded by that quote-unquote storyline. This has nothing to do with kayfabe. It's just poor writing altogether. And for the sake of argument, if this is a legit breakup and they're both heartbroken and this and that, boo-hoo, goo-goo gaga, you guys will be fine. Hell, the fans will be fine. How many times there will be a breakup in Hollywood or in the music industry, and there'll be a fan that will hear about it, and they go online, oh, love is dead. Like, really? You paid how much to go to their concerts, to go to their shows, to attend their live interviews? I mean, I'm sure they're grateful and appreciative, but at the end of the day, if you don't know them personally, then they can care less about your opinions. Hell, I'm sure they could care less about mine. But because I can have one and stay to here like I am, it just is what it is. And I'm at a point where I can't even say this is legit. I can't say this is for show. I just don't care, to be honest. I just don't care. So moving on. Kevin Owens recently came out and announced that he signed a new 5-year deal with WWE. He was quoted as saying, hopefully I do not see... Is this what he said? That's what he said. Okay. Hopefully I do not see why I will finish my career in WWE. I just recently signed a new 5-year contract with them. I do not intend to go anywhere. My contract will end. If the WWE wants to continue, if I want to continue with my family, is ready for me to continue. And yeah, it's very tongue lashing here. Basically, he doesn't see himself working for anyone else, and that as long as the WWE and himself are willing to make business and work things out, and he'll go on for as long as possible with the understanding and blessing of his family. And at this point, that's why he's doing it for. His family, his son, his wife. Can't think of another, family man that would be selfless and just never be home, never call to say hi or wish anyone happy birthday or, happy New Year and stuff like that. But he's still young enough to pull this off at least 5 more years, if not more. And I'm glad that I came across this report, knowing that Owens will stick around for a little while longer. Jericho was all over the place this week, and I mean all over. Where to begin, do not know, but the next few stories have Chris Jericho involved. So according to Dave Meltzer, it's been revealed a little bit more details about Chris Jericho being removed from the casket match with The Undertaker at the Greatest Royal Rumble. And Meltzer will go on to say, when Jericho heard that he was being placed in the match, that he told Vince that he was going to go to New Japan to do an angle for their domination show. And then it'll be a few hours later, Jericho was told that the Prince of Saudi Arabia requested Rusev to face The Undertaker. So with that new arrangement, Jericho was placed in the 50-man Royal Rumble instead, which is kind of confusing, but I guess maybe the original idea was Jericho and Undertaker, but then they went with the original announcement of Rusev and Taker. Then, oh, wait, Jericho is available? All right, so let's put him back in the casket match with Jericho and Taker. Wait, what? He's doing something in Japan? Okay. So back to Rusev. That was great. Nothing wrong with that. It was great to see Rusev getting in a one-on-one match with a veteran and a legend as The Undertaker. But I guess it was just a confusing time. Not too much confusing because Jericho was still at the event, obviously. But if it was maybe a concern, and we've seen this before during casket matches, maybe to avoid injury, not have Jericho, is the only logical reason I can come up with. But then again, being involved in the 50-man Royal Rumble, even though he threw number 50, or he drew number 50, and was in there with maybe half a dozen guys by the end, and even Rumbles can have injuries, but not as much in a casket match. But that's the only reason I can come up with. Either way, it all worked out for everyone, and Jericho, kept to his word about showing up in Japan, and that he did, attacking Naito, making it official for a one-on-one match for New Japan Domination 2018, as Y2J will go one-on-one with Naito. Now, at this point, I probably won't take Chris Jericho's word for what it's worth when it comes to what he's going to do next. It was reported, even Jericho said it himself, there was not a fallout, but just things weren't working out between him and New Japan to cut a new deal, even after attacking Naito then, and it just went cold. And all of a sudden, he appears at a New Japan show a couple of weeks ago, attacking Naito, dressed as a fan, coming out to the audience, and just beat the crap out of him. And then later on that day, it's shown Jericho walking from inside the arena to his car, and just cursing up a storm, cursing out Naito, cursing out New Japan, the reporters, the photographers that were there, and drove off. So it's already on paper, Chris Jericho versus Naito, New Japan Domination, and I will be watching for sure. More than likely it'll be at 2, 3 in the morning here in the States, but yeah, I'll be watching. Another confirmation from Chris Jericho is that he confirmed he was looking to be a potential replacement for Shane McMahon had Shane not been medically cleared on time. So it would have been Chris Jericho teaming up with Daniel Bryan, taking on Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. So good to know that there's still a better working relationship than anyone else thought between Jericho and WWE had he potentially stepped in for Shane. But thankfully, Shane healed enough and recovered enough to pull out a pretty good performance, all things considered. And he carried the match for the first about almost 5 to 10 minutes, even after being released from the hospital and then medically cleared. I thought that speaks volumes. Lita was also in the news and was not happy with the fact that there were no women allowed for the Greatest Royal Rumble. As she spoke to Radio Zone Radio, and this is what she had to say: "I understand that they are a business, a global business, and they are always looking to expand their global presence. However, I do feel that this was a direct conflict of interest with them maintaining any integrity or truth to the fact that they say that they would like to push forward with women for their roles and their reputation in the business as anything resembling equal to a male. Make the money, that's fine, but don't try to cover it up. Don't say, no, we are doing this because in the future we would like to help progress their culture forward. No, you want the money. You're a business and business make money. That's okay. From my perspective over here, I don't own your business, so that's your call. From a PR perspective, don't say you are doing it because we want to help progress a culture forward. No, it's a direct conflict of interest in my opinion. That's Amy Dumas, better known as Lita. Obviously did not agree with the arrangements that were made between Saudi Arabia and WWE with not having any women. We are 3 weeks away or 3 weeks apart from the event itself, and people are still talking about it. And the main subject is about why the women weren't there. Now, I'm not going to defend either side because it was agreed upon. It was a lot of money involved for a 10-year deal. And that was one big decision to make, to not have women on the show in any capacity. And that included the video packages. But somebody screwed that up. I'm sure whoever they were, he or she, they were reprimanded, nearly costing the company $25 million a year. And all as well as they're still moving forward to November for another great event, Survivor Series or another gimmick event. Who knows? Maybe Hell in a Cell. Who knows? But I understand where Lita's coming from. It's all about business. It's all about making money. In this case, at the expense of the women not being a part of it. Now, I don't know if she's aware of all the women on the inner division were still paid a salary as if they were there. The only funny thing I find about this, as during the time that WWE were away in Saudi Arabia, all the women on Raw and SmackDown, and even NXT, because there were NXT people involved, they were having slumber parties, they were having hangouts, get-togethers, and they took full advantage of that extra few days off that week and still got paid. So even more of a reason to celebrate. So again, I'm not sure if Lita was aware of that information as it was first told by Jerry Lawler on his podcast. Jim Ross had a different opinion about it. If you weren't there, then why are you getting paid for? But it was confirmed by WWE later on that in fact the women were paid as if they were at the greatest Royal Rumble. According to PW Insider, Charlotte Flair will continue on with the current European tour. As I mentioned, they're in Germany as we speak. But unfortunately, we'll miss out on the upcoming ACE Comic-Con, as Charlotte will not attend, as she will undergo surgery to repair a ruptured implant in her chest. There was no word given as to when exactly this occurred, but they're hoping that once they return from the European tour, she has the surgery, and with matter of days, matter of fact, a few weeks, I should say, that should be recovered and healed enough and still partake in the women's ladder match for Money in the Bank. And it's about 5 weeks. So I'm no expert, I'm no doctor, and I wouldn't tell anyone that goes under that kind of procedure and say, you have this amount of time to recover. And that should be more than enough for you to return into the ring and continue on, doing what you do. Something like this, something very similar happened to China, may she rest in peace. And same thing, she didn't have surgery right away, but she talked about on her YouTube channel and a couple of podcast interviews that she's conducted that she had a ruptured implant and will still show up to events, live events, TV tapings, but obviously didn't perform much in the ring, as she wore extra layer of clothing, specifically a vest, to not draw attention to that area, and eventually had it repaired. And I believe it was this time that she had custom-made implants created just for her. Hence the China 2000 were created, or the C2000. Very reminiscing of a Terminator. But yeah, China had custom-made implants just for her. She was a much bigger woman physically than Charlotte is now, although Charlotte is pretty tall. But hopefully Charlotte can recover from this. If need be, take extra time off, because something like this, you never know. But hopefully everyone knows what they're doing, and with Charlotte's blessing, they move forward with this and have a great kick-ass women's ladder match for Money in the Bank. Back on May 9th, Vader underwent a successful heart surgery. This is his second heart surgery in less than a year, as apparently there were complications from his previous surgery. The outcome of that was a irregular heartbeat. This caused many concerns, and Vader was later on admitted. And he took to Twitter to confirm that it was successful and that his heart is now back to a normal pulsing rhythm, and hopefully to be back at work real soon. Work being making independent appearances, Comic-Con appearances. I would assume it was advised against not to step back into the ring anytime soon, if not at all. But that'll be up to Vader himself. He's a very tough man and very kind, gentle giant. I want to add in there. When I met him several occasions, he's a very good man. But thankfully, his heart surgery was successful, and he can move on and hopefully continue his career in pro wrestling. Jason Jordan was backstage this week on Raw, but obviously was not used, as reported by PW Insider that he would return as early as this week. But more than likely, my opinion, the word got out, and Vince didn't want to, I guess, compliment or praise those reports, and especially the smart fans online, and expected Jordan to show up at some capacity during Raw, and they held him off. And it wasn't reported here that he's medically cleared, other than that he returned. So it'll be very interesting to see where he fits. Maybe a surprise entrant into the Money in the Bank, or just be a threat towards Seth Rollins, maybe picking up that rival where it left off before he went for neck surgery back in February. So we shall see. Speaking of Raw, Ronda Rousey was off again. So much for that being on every week. But she did have other commitments even before signing with WWE, as she was in Fiji filming for Shark Week on Discovery. That's a hell of a day off, isn't it? This particular episode of Shark Week on Discovery will air on July 22nd with Ronda Rousey and friends. Should be very interesting. And she's supposed to be in Germany with them. I didn't read a report about that, but I mentioned a couple episodes ago that Ronda Rousey was going to have her in-ring debut matches one-on-one with Mickie James during the Germany tour. I haven't seen any footage. I haven't seen any reports about that. How far is Fiji from Germany? I'm sure that's quite a trip, quite a flight. But yeah, that's the latest on Ronda Rousey. A bit of sad news to report. As many of you know, Nick Bosick, better known as Big Bully in late 90s WWF, unfortunately passed away at the age of 63. According to WWE.com, who put out a note about it, they acknowledged it on their website. A notorious in-ring villain known for his signature mustache, Bosick battled superstars like Bret Hart, Sid, and the British Bulldog in the early 90s. WWE extends its condolences to the Bosick family, friends, and fans. Yeah, I wish they could have done a lot more with the Big Bully. Obviously, he was, I guess the Von Villains would be a better rendition of him as far as modern time goes. But had he stuck around a little while longer and maybe managed the Von Villains, give him that extra shtick, if you will, because to me, Big Bully kind of had that. His appearance was kind of based on that time era of early 1950s, if not early, when pro wrestling was still getting into the pop culture, and a lot of the male wrestlers would have these really thick, long mustaches, and of course, the Vaudevillains were known for that, as well as Big Bully here. At least that's just me fantasy booking, I guess, but. I do remember his very short feud with Sid on Superstars of Wrestling, and he would just squash him with a matter of seconds. He was supposed to be part of the Survivor Series team of Berserker, Skinner, and I believe Hercules. Hercules ended up replacing Big Bully and Colonel Mustafa. Hercules was a last-minute replacement. I think around that time is when Big Bully was released by the company and was never seen again, unfortunately. But kudos to WWE, and hopefully I can say that phrase many more times moving forward, to acknowledging the pass of Nick Bosick. And it was very sad, only at 63. And I hope, I guess, not up to me, but I guess maybe get a Hall of Fame induction sometime soon. And I'll end with this. This week would have been Owen Hart's 57th birthday. Where he would have been at this point in time in the business is anyone's guess. Many who watched the Wrestling with Shadows documentary, better yet, if you purchased the special edition DVD of that documentary, there was a separate disc in the box, and it was basically the extra footage that was shot for the original documentary, but the extra footage had to do with Owen Hart. And some of it was in the original, but I guess the extended scenes were used. And in there, Owen mentions that he would have loved to have been a firefighter before he got into wrestling, and that maybe when the time comes for him to retire from wrestling, that he would have gone back to that previous career. And maybe that's what he could have been doing now. Could have been a fire chief at this point. But it's very sad, and I'm not going to get into as to what happened. I'm sure we all know by now what happened to Owen, but rather discuss what took place at the Hall of Fame this year. Mark Henry, as many of you know, was a very close friend to Owen Hart. And finally, I was glad to see this. I know I wasn't the only one, that someone took to the microphone at a Hall of Fame and asked the cameraman to zoom in on Mark Henry's face, all but begged for Owen to be inducted, like now, next year, the following, but at some point to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, because he does deserve it. He's left such a lasting impression, and that at the end of his career, some might argue he deserved better of what was going on with that blue blazer persona, but there were plans for him to break away from that and eventually become the Intercontinental Champion. And if there is any truth to further reports, that he would have become the World Wrestling Federation champion. But he had to break away from, the plans were for him to break away from Jeff Jarrett and Deborah at the time and give up the blue blazer gimmick. Obviously, we'll never know, other than what was ever written on paper and who has those notes now today. I could venture a guess, but that's someone's name I refuse to mention here on the JM Report. But 57 years old, Owen Hart would have been. Again, Mark Henry pleading for Martha to do the right thing. And I think it's way too long, because at this point, everyone else is suffering from it, not just the family. Owen touched a lot of lives. He's done a lot of good in his career. when he wasn't always wrestling, he's helped out a lot of people, whether it's backstage or even the fans, just simply saying hi. And that Owen, there are many stories that Owen would just, hey, how about a drink? Or hey, yeah, here's an autograph for your kid. Here's a photo, and not really be a douche about it. All I've ever heard were a lot of good Owen Hart stories and memories. Of course, if he was ever in character and he came off as a heel to anyone, then he's keeping kayfabe alive. So it's just still heartbreaking to discuss Owen. I never met the man. Oh no, I take that back. I did meet him once at the 1996 Hall of Fame at the Marriott Hotel in Times Square before Survivor Series that year, and sitting at the table with the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. And I mentioned he was a heel at the time, along with Bulldog. So my only guess is that he was, staying in character. So what I was doing all night before the actual ceremony began is walk up to any and all wrestlers I could just to get their autographs. I didn't take too many pictures, but the ones I did of, I was very fortunate to do so, such as Paul Bearer, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Farouk, Davey Boy Smith, Crush, Fake Razor and Fake Diesel, and Bob Holly, who sat at my table. But my only experience with Owen Hart is I walked up to them politely, respectfully. I didn't just, shove my notepad and pen into their faces. Say, "Excuse me, Mr. Hart, Mr. Smith, may I get your autograph?" And Owen turned to me and said, "No, not right now. I'm talking." So, okay. So I took a few steps back, and there was a wall there, and I just leaned against it, waiting. So at some point, Owen just gets up and walks away, and I never saw him again. But I ended up sitting in his seat next to Davey Boy, and he was talking to other fans there, and I was just looking around to see if there was anyone else I could catch. And to my surprise, Davey reached out to my little autograph book and was gently pulling it out of my hands that was on the table. And I turned and looked, and, he smiled. "Hey, buddy, how about an autograph?" "Oh, that'd be great, sir. Thank you." And sure enough, he signed it for me. And I'm pretty sure, did I take a picture? I can't remember with Davey Boy. I think I did. This is where I was 16 years old, maybe 17. So this was a really long time ago. And the years that went by, there were many great matches with Owen. Of course, then 97 came and 98, and, no one could have predicted or foreseen the future at that point. But Owen definitely left his mark in the business. Because of legal purposes, they couldn't really do anything other than a DVD collection with some of his best matches, some of his rare matches, and never before seen footage. I was fortunate to see Owen King of Hearts DVD from a couple of years ago, and that was it. There was really nothing else that WWE could have produced under, or using his name, I should say, because Martha, the widow of Owen Hart, holds all of that, all of his rights to his name, his likenesses, and so forth. That's why we don't see him in video games or as a downloadable character or action figures. Everyone's customizing their own versions of Owen Hart, which is great, but it's just not the real thing. It's just not the real deal. I hope one day, without name calling or pointing fingers, because Brett has done a lot of that in the past few years, that basically Martha is holding the fans hostage by not doing more with Owen's name. And that may or may not change. It's up to her. But hopefully one day I could see the day that she comes to terms with all this, and that she'll be the one to induct Owen to the Hall of Fame, to give that acceptance speech alongside with the Hart family and I guess members of her side of the family as well. One day, Owen and WWE can finally come back together and be the newest inductee. So with that said, I hope I didn't leave anyone reaching for a tissue box. It's quite a sensitive subject for anyone that's followed for as long as I have. But just want to thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time to joining me here for the JM Report. Just want to give a special shout out to CSB Studios for allowing me to use their campus site, their Studio A, matter of fact, for all this to be possible. And anyone that's interested of becoming a member or student for CSB, all they got to do, head over to gocsb.com and begin your training in media, video, audio, behind the scenes camera work, working the soundboards, you name it. They would have the proper training with amazing professional professors and teachers that are already in the business, alumni that do teach classes morning and night. So head over to gocsb.com for all the information and find the nearest CSB campus in your area. And I say go for it. Had it not been for them, I would not be doing this. I'll tell you that much. And I will always be grateful